Please, just leave me alone. Sarah's voice cracks as she presses herself against the brick wall of the alley, rainwater soaking through her thin waitress uniform. The fluorescent light from the diner flickers behind her, casting eerie shadows on the 3 men blocking her path. Come on, sweetheart, the tallest one leers, stepping closer. We just want to talk. You've been ignoring us all week. Sarah's heart pounds as she clutches her purse tighter. After a 16-hour shift at Murphy's Diner, the last thing she needs is trouble from these regulars who've been harassing her for tips and more. Her apartment is just 2 blocks away, but it might as well be miles. I said no. Her voice is barely a whisper as she edges along the wall, looking for an escape route. That's when she sees him. A figure slumped against the dumpster, barely visible in the shadows. At first glance, he looks like another homeless person, but something about his stillness makes her stomach clench. Even in her terror, Sarah's nurturing instincts kick in, the same ones that made her slip extra food to hungry customers when her manager wasn't looking. Hey, she calls out, surprising herself. Are you okay? The 3 men turn, annoyed by the interruption. Mind your own business, lady. We're having a conversation here. But Sarah pushes past them, drawn to the motionless figure. As she gets closer, her breath catches. The man is wearing an expensive-looking black coat, now torn and stained with what looks like blood. His dark hair falls across a face that's aristocratically beautiful, even pale and unconscious as he is. Oh my God, she whispers, dropping to her knees beside him. Sir? Can you hear me? His skin is ice-cold to the touch, but when she presses her fingers to his wrist, she feels a pulse. Slow, but steady. The metallic scent of blood fills her nostrils, and she can see dark stains spreading across his white shirt beneath the coat. We should call 911, she says, more to herself than to her harassers, who are now backing away, suddenly uncomfortable. This is weird, man. Let's get out of here. Sarah barely notices them leave. All her attention is focused on the stranger's face. Even unconscious and injured, there's something magnetic about him. Something that makes her forget her own fear and exhaustion. Before we continue, please subscribe to prove my mom wrong. She shrugs off her cardigan and presses it against what appears to be a wound on his chest. It's going to be okay, she murmurs, though she's not sure if she's talking to him or herself. I'm going to help you. His eyes flutter open and Sarah gasps. They're the most extraordinary shade of silver she's ever seen, like moonlight on water. For a moment, they're unfocused, but then they lock onto hers with an intensity that makes her feel exposed, as if he can see straight through to her soul. Don't, he says, his voice a low rasp that sends shivers down her spine despite its weakness. Don't call anyone. But you're hurt. You need a hospital. No hospitals. His hand covers hers where she's pressing the cardigan to his chest. His grip is surprisingly strong for someone who looks half dead. Please. Sarah stares into those silver eyes, and something in their depths makes her nod. Maybe it's the desperation she sees there, or maybe it's the way her skin tingles where he touches her. But she finds herself agreeing. Okay, she whispers. But we can't stay here. Can you walk? He struggles to sit up, and she slides her arm around his shoulders to help him. He's taller than she expected, and broader, his frame dwarfing her petite figure. The scent that clings to him is intoxicating, something dark and masculine that makes her head spin. My apartment is close, she says, surprising herself again. She never brings strangers home, especially not mysterious injured men she finds in alleys. But something about him calls to her protective instincts in a way she can't explain. You don't know me, he says, searching her face. Why would you help me? Sarah meets his gaze steadily. Because someone should. Because you're hurt, and I can't just walk away. Something flickers in his silver eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or gratitude. He allows her to help him to his feet, leaning on her more heavily than she expected. Each step is a struggle, but they make it to her building, a run-down apartment complex that suddenly feels shabby in the presence of this elegant stranger. 3rd floor, she pants as they climb the narrow staircase. Almost there. Her studio apartment is tiny and cluttered, furnished with second-hand pieces and decorated with clearance rack finds, but it's clean and warm. She helps him to her small sofa, and he sinks into it with visible relief. "Thank you," he says, and the simple words carry a weight that makes her chest tight. "Let me get you some water," she says, bustling to the kitchenette, "and I should look at that wound properly." When she turns back, he's watching her with an expression she can't read. In the soft light of her apartment, she can see him more clearly. His features are sharp and aristocratic, with high cheekbones and a strong jaw. His dark hair is slightly wavy, falling across his forehead, in a way that makes her fingers itch to brush it back. He looks like he stepped out of a Renaissance painting, all classical beauty and mysterious shadows. "What's your name?" she asks, settling beside him with a first aid kit she pulled from her bathroom cabinet. He hesitates. "Adrian." "I'm Sarah." She begins carefully cleaning the blood from his shirt, trying not to notice the way his muscles tense under her touch. "What happened to you?" "Business disagreement," he says dryly. "I chose the wrong alley to conclude negotiations." She looks up at him, noting the careful way he phrases things. "You're not going to tell me the truth, are you?" "Would you believe me if I did?" There's something in his tone that makes her pause in her ministrations. "Try me." Adrian studies her face for a long moment. The truth is complicated, dangerous. More dangerous than helping a bleeding stranger in an alley? A smile tugs at the corner of his mouth, the first she's seen from him. It transforms his entire face, making him even more devastatingly attractive. "You have a point." Sarah continues tending to his wound, which she's surprised to find is already healing remarkably well. "You heal fast," she observes. "Good genetics," he says, but there's something evasive in his tone. As she works, she becomes aware of how close they are, how her hands shake slightly as they move across his chest. She's helped plenty of injured customers at the diner over the years, but this feels different. Every touch seems charged with electricity, and she finds herself hyper-aware of his every breath, every slight movement. "You're tired," Adrian observes, and she realizes he's been watching her face while she worked. "Long day," she admits. 16 hours at the diner then. Well, this. "You work 16-hour shifts?" Something in his tone makes her look up. His expression has hardened, but not toward her. There's anger there, but it seems directed elsewhere. "Sometimes," she says with a shrug. "Rent doesn't pay itself, and tips haven't been great lately. You live alone?" "Yeah." She finishes bandaging his wound and sits back, suddenly self-conscious. "It's not much, but it's mine." Adrian reaches out and touches her cheek, his fingers cool against her skin. "You're extraordinary," he says quietly. "Do you know that?" Sarah feels heat rise in her cheeks. "I'm really not. I'm just me. A waitress who can barely make ends meet." "You saved my life tonight," he says, his silver eyes intense. "A lesser person would have walked past or called the authorities despite my wishes. You brought me into your home, tended my wounds, asked for nothing in return. Anyone would have—" "No," he interrupts firmly. "They wouldn't. Trust me on this." There's something in his voice, a certainty that suggests he speaks from experience. Sarah wonders what kind of life he's lived to be so sure of people's selfishness. "I should let you rest," she says, suddenly aware of how intimate the moment has become. "You can take the bed. I'll sleep on the floor." "Absolutely not." His tone brooks no argument. "I'll take the couch." "But you're injured?" "Sarah." The way he says her name, low and deliberate, makes her stomach flutter. "I'm not taking your bed." She wants to argue, but there's an authority in his voice that she finds herself responding to instinctively. Instead, she fetches him a pillow and one of her softer blankets, acutely aware of his eyes tracking her movements. "Will you be okay?" she asks, hovering nearby. "Do you need anything else?" "Just rest," he says. "And Sarah? Thank you for everything." Something in his tone, suggests this means more to him than simple gratitude for medical care. Sarah nods, retreating to her bedroom area, but sleep is a long time coming. She lies awake listening to the sounds from the living room, or rather, the lack of them. Adrian is remarkably quiet, and several times she finds herself straining to hear any sign that he's still there. When she finally does drift off, her dreams are filled with silver eyes and cool touches, and a strange sense that her life has just irrevocably changed. Sarah wakes to sunlight streaming through her thin curtains and the sound of her alarm blaring. She bolts upright, suddenly remembering the events of the night before. The injured stranger, Adrian, on her couch. But when she rushes to the living room, he's gone. The blanket is folded neatly, the pillow fluffed and placed just so. If not for the slight indentation in the couch cushions, she might have thought she dreamed the whole thing. But there, on her tiny dining table, is something that makes her breath catch. A single white rose, impossibly perfect, lies beside a note written in elegant script on heavy paper that feels expensive beneath her fingers. Sarah, your kindness will not be forgotten. You have given me more than you know. Until we meet again, A. She stares at the note, tracing the letters with her fingertip. The paper feels like nothing she's ever touched, thick and smooth, with a subtle texture that speaks of quality beyond her experience. Where would someone get paper like this? And the rose? She lifts it to her nose, inhaling its perfect fragrance. It's flawless, without a single wilted petal, as if it were just cut from the most pristine garden. The practical part of her mind wonders how he left without her hearing, and where he could have gotten a rose at dawn, but she pushes those questions aside. Instead, she carefully places the flower in a glass of water and tucks the note into her jewelry box. The one precious thing her grandmother left her. The day passes in a blur of mundane routine that feels surreal after the intensity of the previous night. At Murphy's diner, she serves coffee and takes orders, but her mind keeps drifting to silver eyes and cool touches. Her coworker, Janet, notices her distraction. "You're glowing today, honey," Janet says during their brief break. "Got yourself a man?" "It's nothing like that," Sarah protests, but she can feel heat rising in her cheeks. "Uh-huh," Janet grins knowingly. "That's exactly what someone with a new man would say." Sarah shakes her head, but she can't deny the flutter in her chest every time she thinks of Adrian. There was something between them last night, something electric and impossible to ignore. But he's gone now, and she's probably just another good deed in what she imagines is a very complicated life. The dinner rush is particularly brutal, and by the time Sarah finally makes it home, exhaustion weighs on her like a physical thing. She climbs the 3 flights to her apartment, keys jingling in her tired fingers, already looking forward to a hot shower and checking on her rose. But when she reaches her floor, she stops, dead. 10 black carriages line the street below, visible through the hallway window. They're like something out of a period film. Elegant, expensive, with drivers in formal livery standing at attention beside magnificent black horses. Curious neighbors peer from windows and doorways, whispering among themselves. Sarah's heart begins to race as she fumbles with her keys. It can't be a coincidence. Nothing like this has ever happened in her neighborhood. Hell, nothing like this happens anywhere in the modern world. Yet there they are, impossible and magnificent, and somehow connected to her, though she can't imagine how. Her hands shake as she finally gets her door open. The rose still sits in its glass, as perfect as when she left it. But now there are other things. A dozen white roses arranged in a crystal vase that probably costs more than her monthly rent. Boxes wrapped in silver paper and tied with silk ribbons. And sitting in her armchair, looking perfectly at ease in her shabby apartment, is Adrian. He's changed since last night. Gone are the torn clothes and bloodstains. Instead, he wears a perfectly tailored black suit that emphasizes his broad shoulders and lean build. His dark hair is styled with casual elegance, and his silver eyes seem to glow in the lamplight. He looks like he stepped off the pages of a magazine, wealthy, powerful, and completely out of place in her humble home. "Hello, Sarah," he says, rising gracefully to his feet, How did you... She gestures helplessly toward the door she just unlocked. I just got home. I have my ways. His lips curve in a slight smile. I hope you don't mind the intrusion. The Carriages, she says, moving to the window. From her third-floor apartment, she has a perfect view of the spectacle below. More neighbors have gathered now, pointing and taking pictures with their phones. Are those yours? Part of my escort, yes. He moves to stand behind her, close enough that she can feel the warmth, no, coolness, radiating from his body. I wanted to arrive properly. Sarah turns to face him, acutely aware of how small her apartment must seem to someone who travels with 10 carriages. Who are you, really? Adrian studies her face for a long moment, as if weighing his words. Someone who owes you a debt of gratitude. Someone who would very much like to repay your kindness. You already did. She gestures to the roses, the gifts. This is too much. This is nothing, he says, and something in his tone tells her he means it literally. Sarah, I want to offer you something. What kind of something? He takes her hands in his, and she notices again how cool his skin is, how his touch sends shivers up her arms. Come with me tonight. Let me show you my world. Your world? My life. My home. Let me thank you properly. Sarah looks down at their joined hands, then back up into his mesmerizing silver eyes. Every rational part of her mind screams warnings. She doesn't know this man, doesn't understand the mystery surrounding him, can't fathom how he affords such extravagance. But there's something in his expression, a vulnerability beneath the obvious wealth and power that calls to her. I don't have anything to wear, she says, and immediately feels foolish for the excuse. Adrian's smile is brilliant. He gestures to the boxes scattered around her apartment. I took the liberty of having some things sent over. I hope you don't mind. Sarah approaches the nearest box with trembling fingers. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, is the most beautiful dress she's ever seen. Midnight blue silk that seems to shimmer with its own light. The style is elegant and timeless, with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt that she knows will flatter her figure perfectly. How did you know my size? She asks, lifting the dress with reverent hands. I'm very observant, he says softly. There are shoes as well, and other things. Other boxes reveal delicate undergarments in silk and lace, shoes that fit her feet perfectly, and jewelry that takes her breath away. A necklace of sapphires and diamonds that catches the light like captured stars. I can't accept all this, she says, though part of her desperately wants to. You can, and you will, Adrian says firmly. Please, Sarah. Let me do this for you. There's something almost pleading in his tone, despite his commanding presence, as if her acceptance means more to him than she can understand. Okay, she whispers, and his smile transforms his entire face. I'll wait outside while you change, he says. Take your time. After he leaves, Sarah stares at herself in her bathroom mirror. Her reflection looks back, tired, overwhelmed, wearing a uniform that smells like grease and coffee. In a few minutes, she'll transform into someone else entirely. Someone who belongs in Adrian's mysterious world. The dress fits like it was made for her, skimming her curves in all the right places. The shoes add height and elegance to her normally practical stride. The jewelry feels heavy and precious against her skin. When she finally looks in the mirror again, she barely recognizes herself. The woman looking back at her is beautiful, sophisticated, worthy of 10 carriages and crystal vases. For the first time in years, Sarah feels truly lovely. Adrian's reaction when she opens the door confirms it. His silver eyes darken as they travel over her, and for a moment he seems speechless. You're breathtaking, he says finally, offering her his arm. The trip downstairs draws every eye in the building. Sarah can hear whispers and gasps as they pass, can feel the weight of her neighbors' stares. Mrs. Chen from 2B actually drops her grocery bag, oranges rolling across the floor as she gapes. Outside, the scene is even more dramatic. The carriages wait in perfect formation, their drivers standing at attention. Curious onlookers line the sidewalks, phones out to capture the spectacle. Sarah has never been the center of so much attention, and part of her wants to hide. But Adrian's presence beside her is steady and reassuring. He helps her into the lead carriage, settling beside her on seats upholstered in buttery leather. The interior is elegant and old-world, with brass fittings and crystal decanters built into the sides. "Where are we going?" Sarah asks as the carriage begins to move. "My home," Adrian says simply. "I want you to see how I live." They ride through the city in a strange, dreamlike procession. Other cars pull aside to let them pass, their drivers and passengers staring in amazement. Sarah feels like she's in a fairy tale, transported from her ordinary life into something magical and impossible. The landscape gradually changes as they leave the city behind, suburban sprawl giving way to rolling hills and ancient trees. The carriages follow a winding road through what appears to be private property. Vast estates with manicured grounds and imposing mansions set back from the road, but even these pale in comparison to their final destination. Adrian's home rises from the landscape like something out of a Gothic novel, a massive mansion of dark stone and soaring spires, with countless windows glowing warmly in the gathering dusk. It's beautiful and imposing, and utterly unlike anything Sarah has ever seen outside of movies. "This is where you live?" she breathes, craning her neck to take it all in. "For the past century or so, yes," Adrian says, then seems to catch himself. "It's been in my family for generations." Sarah barely processes the slip, too overwhelmed by the grandeur surrounding her. Servants in formal livery emerge from the mansion as their carriage draws to a halt, forming orderly lines on either side of the entrance. A red carpet has been rolled out, leading from the carriage to the massive front doors. "This is too much," Sarah whispers, suddenly intimidated. Adrian takes her hand, squeezing gently. "You saved my life," he says quietly. "This is how my people honor such debts." "Your people," she thinks, but doesn't voice the question. Instead, she allows him to help her from the carriage, acutely aware of all the eyes upon her. The servants bow as she passes, their faces respectful but curious. She can practically hear them wondering who this unknown woman is, why their master is treating her with such obvious reverence. The interior of the mansion is even more impressive than the exterior. Soaring ceilings painted with elaborate frescoes, marble floors covered with priceless rugs, artwork that Sarah recognizes from art history textbooks gracing the walls. Everything speaks of wealth beyond imagination, of power and influence stretching back generations. "How long has your family lived here?" Sarah asks as Adrian leads her through corridors lined with portraits of stern-faced ancestors. "A very long time," he says evasively. "We're old money, you might say." They pass through several sitting rooms and a library that makes Sarah gasp, floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with leather-bound volumes, some of which look ancient beyond measure. Finally, Adrian leads her into a dining room dominated by a table that could seat 20, though tonight it's set for just 2. Crystal goblets catch the light from an enormous chandelier overhead. The china is delicate and clearly antique, painted with intricate designs. Silver gleams against pristine white linens, and candles cast everything in a warm, romantic glow. "You went to a lot of trouble," Sarah says, allowing Adrian to seat her. "You're worth the trouble," he replies, taking his place across from her. Dinner is like nothing Sarah has ever experienced. Course after course of exquisite food, each dish more delicious than the last. Adrian proves to be an excellent conversationalist, drawing her out with gentle questions about her life, her dreams, her fears. She finds herself telling him things she's never shared with anyone, about her grandmother who raised her, about her struggles to make ends meet, about her secret dream of going back to school someday. "What would you study?" Adrian asks, leaning forward with genuine interest. "Art history, maybe," Sarah admits shyly. "I know it's not practical, but I've always been fascinated by beautiful things. Paintings, sculptures, architecture." She gestures around them. "Places like this." "Beauty should be appreciated," Adrian says seriously. "Preserved, cherished." There's nothing impractical about that. Sarah feels heat rise in her cheeks at his intensity. What about you? What do you do? Adrian's smile is enigmatic. I manage my family's interests. We have holdings around the world, real estate, investments, various business ventures. That sounds important. It can be demanding, he acknowledges. But tonight, none of that matters. Tonight is about you. As the evening progresses, Sarah becomes increasingly aware of the way Adrian looks at her, the careful attention he pays to her every word. She's used to being invisible, just another working-class woman trying to get by. But under his silver gaze, she feels seen in a way that's both thrilling and terrifying. After dinner, he leads her to a terrace overlooking elaborate gardens that stretch into the darkness. The night air is cool and sweet with the scent of night-blooming flowers. In the distance, Sarah can see the lights of the city they left behind, twinkling like earthbound stars. It's beautiful, she breathes, leaning against the stone balustrade. Yes, Adrian agrees, but when she glances at him, he's looking at her, not the view. Adrian, she starts, then stops, suddenly shy. What is it? He moves closer, his hand coming up to cup her cheek. I don't understand any of this, she admits. Last night you were bleeding in an alley, and now all this luxury, the carriages, this mansion. Who are you really? Adrian's thumb traces her cheekbone, sending shivers through her. I'm someone who has lived a very long time, he says carefully. Someone who has seen too much darkness, too much cruelty. And then you appeared, like an angel in that alley, and reminded me that goodness still exists in this world. I'm not an angel, Sarah protests weakly, leaning into his touch despite herself. You are to me, he says seriously. You saved me, Sarah, in more ways than you know. Before she can ask what he means, his lips are on hers, soft and cool and impossibly gentle. The kiss starts tentative, questioning, but when Sarah melts against him with a soft sigh, it deepens. His arms come around her, pulling her close, and she can feel the controlled strength in his embrace. When they finally break apart, Sarah is breathless and dizzy. Adrian's silver eyes seem to glow in the moonlight, and there's something wild and hungry in their depths that makes her pulse race. I should take you home, he says, though his tone suggests it's the last thing he wants to do. What if I don't want to go? The words slip out before Sarah can stop them, bold and breathless. Adrian's arms tighten around her. Sarah. I know this is crazy, she rushes on. I barely know you, and this whole situation is like something out of a dream. But I've never felt anything like this before. You make me feel alive. You don't know what you're saying, Adrian says, but his hands are stroking her back, belying his words. Then tell me, she challenges, looking up into his mesmerizing eyes. Tell me who you really are. Tell me why men with your obvious wealth and power end up bleeding in alleys. Tell me why your skin is always cold, why you move so quietly I can't hear you, why your eyes seem to glow in the dark. Adrian goes very still. For a moment, Sarah thinks he's going to pull away, retreat behind the polite mask he's been wearing all evening. Instead, he takes her hand and leads her to a bench nestled among the night-blooming jasmine. If I tell you the truth, he says carefully, everything changes. You can't unknow it, can't go back to your simple life and pretend none of this happened. My simple life, Sarah repeats with a laugh that's not entirely steady. You mean my 16-hour shifts and overdue bills and studio apartment? Adrian, you've already changed everything. Look at me. She gestures to her beautiful dress, the jewelry glittering at her throat. Look at tonight. I'm already in your world, aren't I? Adrian studies her face in the moonlight, as if trying to memorize every detail. My family is very old, he begins slowly. We've lived in this house for over 3 centuries. We've accumulated wealth and power over the generations, but it comes with a price. What kind of price? We're not entirely human, Sarah. The words hang in the night air between them. Sarah's rational mind wants to laugh, to dismiss such an impossible claim, but there's something in Adrian's expression that stops her. He's deadly serious, and suddenly all the strange details, his cold skin, his silent movements, the way he seems to appear and disappear at will, begin to make a terrible kind of sense. "What are you saying?" she whispers. "We're vampires," Adrian says simply. "I'm a vampire. Last night, those men you saw me with, they weren't business associates. They were hunters, people who know what we are and want to destroy us. I barely escaped with my life." Sarah stares at him, her mind reeling. Vampires. It should be absurd, laughable, impossible. But looking into his silver eyes, she finds she believes him. It explains everything. The otherworldly beauty, the old-fashioned formality, the obvious age and wealth of his family home. "You're telling me vampires are real?" she says slowly. "We prefer the term immortal," Adrian says with a slight smile. "But yes." "And you drink blood?" "We do, but not in the way you might think from movies and books. We don't kill indiscriminately, don't prey on innocents. My family has spent centuries learning to coexist with humanity, to feed without causing harm." Sarah absorbs this, strangely calm despite the earth-shattering nature of his revelation. "Is that why you didn't want me to call for help last night? Because a hospital would have discovered what you are?" "Partially, yes. But also because I heal differently than humans do. By morning, my wounds were nearly gone, something that would have raised uncomfortable questions. And the carriages, this house, all the formality, that's part of your world?" "Vampires tend to be traditional," Adrian says with another small smile. "We live for centuries, so we become attached to the customs and comforts of our time. I was born in the 18th century. Carriages and formal dress feel natural to me." "You were born in the 1800s? Sarah tries to wrap her mind around it. 1847, to be precise. I was 28 when I was turned, so I've been 28 for over 200 years. Sarah looks at him, really looks at him. His face does have a timeless quality, she realizes now, beautiful in a way that seems almost sculpted rather than naturally born. And his eyes, she's never seen eyes like those on any human. "Why are you telling me this?" she asks finally. "Because you asked for the truth," Adrian says simply, "and because you deserve to know what you're getting involved with." "What I'm getting involved with?" Adrian takes her hands in his cool ones, his expression earnest. "Sarah, what happened between us last night? What's happening now? It's not something I take lightly. I haven't felt this way about anyone in decades. But my world is dangerous. There are those who hunt us, who would hurt you to get to me. If we continue this, if you become part of my life, you'll be at risk." Sarah considers this, looking out over the moonlit gardens. A normal person would run, she knows. Would thank him for his honesty and ask to be taken home immediately. But there's something about Adrian that calls to her on a level deeper than rational thought. She's felt more alive in the past 24 hours than she has in years. "What would it mean?" she asks quietly. "Being part of your life?" "It would mean luxury you can't imagine," Adrian says honestly. "Protection, comfort, never having to worry about money or security again. But it would also mean danger, secrecy, leaving your old life behind." "My old life," Sarah repeats thoughtfully. "You mean my job at the diner? My studio apartment? My complete lack of family or close friends?" "Sarah, I'm 26 years old," she says, turning to face him fully. "I work 16-hour shifts for tips that barely cover my rent. I eat ramen noodles for dinner most nights and haven't bought new clothes in 6 months. The most exciting thing that happens to me is when someone leaves a decent tip." She pauses, studying his beautiful, immortal face. "And then you appeared, and suddenly I feel like I'm living in a fairy tale. Dangerous or not, it's better than what I had before." Adrian's grip on her hands tightens. "You don't understand what you'd be giving up. Your humanity, your normal life." "What humanity?" Sarah interrupts with a bitter laugh. "Working myself to death for people who treat me like I'm invisible? That's not living, Adrian. That's just surviving. But your future, your dreams." "My dreams?" Sarah stands, pacing to the balustrade. My dream was to maybe save enough money to take one art history class at the community college. Maybe someday afford a studio apartment with a separate bedroom. Those aren't dreams, they're just less depressing versions of my current reality. She turns back to him, and in the moonlight she looks fierce, determined. You want to know what my real dream is? To matter to someone, to be seen, to be valued, to wake up in the morning and feel like my life has meaning beyond just getting through another day. Adrian rises and moves to her, his hands framing her face. You matter to me, he says intently, more than you know. Then don't take the choice away from me, Sarah says, covering his hands with hers. Don't decide what I can and can't handle. I'm stronger than you think. I know you are, he says softly. You proved that last night, when you helped a stranger despite your own fear. Most people would have walked away. But you're not most people, Sarah points out. You're extraordinary, immortal, and for some impossible reason, you're interested in me. Very interested, Adrian confirms, his thumb stroking her cheek. Sarah, I want to offer you everything. My protection, my devotion, a life beyond anything you've dreamed. But I need you to understand what that means. Tell me. It means you'll become part of my world permanently. There's no going back once you're truly mine. Other vampires will see you as under my protection, but that also makes you a target for my enemies. You'll live in luxury, but also in secrecy. And eventually, he hesitates. Eventually what? Eventually, if you choose it, you could become like me. Immortal. We could have eternity together. Sarah's breath catches. Immortality. The concept is staggering, impossible to fully grasp. But the way Adrian says it, with such hope and longing in his voice, makes her heart race. You're offering me forever, she whispers. I'm offering you everything I have, Adrian confirms, but only if you want it, only if you're truly sure. Sarah looks into his silver eyes, seeing centuries of loneliness there, centuries of careful control and isolation. She thinks of her own lonely existence, her small dreams and smaller hopes. Then she thinks of how she felt last night when she saw him hurt, the overwhelming need to help, to heal, to give him whatever comfort she could. I'm sure, she says quietly. Adrian's kiss this time is anything but gentle. It's hungry, desperate, full of centuries of loneliness and the promise of an end to isolation. Sarah responds with equal fervor, pouring all her hopes and dreams into the connection between them. When they break apart, both are breathing hard. There's something else, Adrian says, his forehead resting against hers. Something you should know before we go any further. What? I'm not just any vampire, Sarah. My family, we're what you might call royalty among our kind. I'm the leader of the largest vampire clan on the East Coast. When you become mine, you'll be under the protection of one of the most powerful supernatural families in existence. Sarah blinks, processing this. You're like a vampire king? In a manner of speaking, yes. So when I become yours, I become my queen, Adrian says simply, if you'll have me. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Queen. Not just girlfriend, not just lover, but queen of a supernatural realm she barely understands. The magnitude of what he's offering is staggering. Adrian, she breathes. I know it's overwhelming, he says quickly. We don't have to decide everything tonight. But I wanted you to understand the full scope of what I'm offering. Not just my love, but my world. My throne. Sarah looks around them, at the magnificent mansion, the elaborately groomed gardens, the obvious wealth and power surrounding them. Then she looks back at Adrian, this beautiful, immortal man who's offering her everything. What would happen to my old life? She asks practically. We'd stage your disappearance, Adrian says honestly. Perhaps a family emergency that requires you to move away suddenly. Your few belongings would be collected, your rent paid, loose ends tied up. As far as the human world is concerned, Sarah the waitress would simply vanish, gone to start a new life elsewhere. And I'd become Sarah the Vampire Queen. Eventually, if that's what you choose. For now, you'd simply be Sarah, the woman I love. Love. He said it so naturally, so certainly that Sarah's heart skips a beat. You love me? Completely, Adrian says without hesitation. I know it seems fast, but when you've lived as long as I have, you learn to recognize something real when you find it. What I feel for you, I've never experienced anything like it. Sarah studies his face, seeing the truth there. And if she's honest with herself, she feels it too. This impossible, overwhelming connection that goes beyond rational explanation. I love you too, she admits quietly, and Adrian's smile is brilliant. Then you'll stay? He asks. You'll let me give you the world? Sarah thinks of her studio apartment, her 16-hour shifts, her lonely nights, an uncertain future. Then she looks at this magnificent man offering her love, protection, adventure, and a life beyond her wildest dreams. Yes, she says simply. Adrian sweeps her into his arms, spinning her around as she laughs. When he sets her down, his expression is tender and possessive. Mine, he says softly, like a vow. Yours, Sarah agrees, and seals the promise with a kiss. The next few hours pass in a blur of planning and preparation. Adrian makes calls to various associates, arranging for Sarah's old life to be quietly dismantled and her belongings retrieved. She calls in sick to the diner, her last shift, though her manager doesn't know it yet. There will be a family emergency in a few days, Adrian explains as they sit in his study, surrounded by leather-bound books and the quiet luxury of old money. A sick relative in another state who needs your care. Very sad, very sudden. But these things happen. Won't people wonder when I never come back? For a while, perhaps. But life moves on. People forget. And you'll be safe here, protected, loved. As dawn approaches, Adrian grows more serious. I should warn you, he says, taking her hands in his. Sunlight doesn't kill me, despite what the movies suggest, but it does weaken me considerably. I'll need to rest soon. Should I go? Never, he says firmly. I've had rooms prepared for you, an entire wing of the house if you want it. But Sarah, he hesitates. What? I'd very much like you to stay with me, to sleep beside me, even if it's just to sleep. The request is vulnerable, almost shy, and Sarah's heart melts. This powerful, centuries-old vampire king wants nothing more than to hold her while he sleeps. I'd like that too, she says softly. Adrian's bedroom is as magnificent as the rest of the house, dominated by an enormous four-poster bed draped in midnight blue silk. The windows are covered with heavy curtains that block out every trace of sunlight, and the air smells of sandalwood and something uniquely Adrian. He provides her with a silk nightgown that feels like liquid heaven against her skin, and when she emerges from the adjoining bathroom, she finds him already in bed, wearing only sleep pants that emphasize his lean, muscled torso. Come here, he says softly, lifting the covers for her. Sarah slips into bed beside him, marveling at the feel of silk sheets and the solid warmth of his body beside her. He pulls her close, arranging her against his side with careful tenderness. Are you comfortable? He asks, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. More comfortable than I've ever been in my life, Sarah admits truthfully. The bed alone probably costs more than her annual rent, and being held by Adrian makes her feel safer than she's felt since her grandmother died. Sleep, Adrian murmurs, his voice already drowsy as the approaching dawn affects him. When we wake, your new life begins. Sarah closes her eyes, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. Outside, she can hear the sounds of the vast household settling into daytime quiet. Inside, she's wrapped in luxury and love, about to embark on an adventure beyond her wildest dreams. As she drifts off to sleep, her last thought is wonder at how much her life has changed in just 2 days. Yesterday morning she was Sarah the waitress, invisible and struggling. Tonight she's Sarah the beloved, chosen queen of a vampire king. And tomorrow? Tomorrow she'll begin to discover what it truly means to be Adrian's queen.